Have you ever seen a headphone that looks like this? This is the SJY Zeph, and it is one expensive chunk of aluminum. Let's talk about it. So this is a roughly $1,000 planar magnetic headphone made by a guy in Texas. I'm going to go over the build and comfort, then we're going to talk about sound quality and measurements. Before I do that, I want to mention it does come with a case, which is kind of nice. Got this big SJY logo on it, though it's a huge case. And it does come with a 4.4 millimeter connector, but let's be honest, I'm never going to use that. I do think these would pack a lot better and probably travel better if they could lay flat, but they cannot. Seems like a missed opportunity. They do have some degree of tilt and swivel though. A whole lot of tilt. I mean, look at that. A little bit of swivel. Pretty decent range. This seems like a really good time to mention that the unit that I got in is not a production unit, which sending me a non-production headphone is just a great way to give me heart palpitations. Continuing onwards, it has a pretty good range of motion. The size of the head you can fit this on is going to be pretty massive. I mean, like, this is, like, that's not even touching the top of my head. There is a suspension strap, which you can see right in here. The pads are detachable, leaving a really thin planar behind. This whole assembly here is about 7 millimeters. It's really just some magnets, some aluminum, and a driver all in there. I think if this thing was any thinner, actually, you would struggle to put a 3.5 millimeter connector on there. Look at that. And this bottom piece here actually appears to be 3D printed via FDM, as is the pad assembly here with these little vents on either side. And inside this pad assembly, it's magnetic. Well, I don't know if it itself is magnetic or if it's just that it has metal in here and is being attracted to the magnets in the headphone. I assume that's the case. All things considered, the pads, the headband, all that's really comfortable. The ear pads themselves are about 49 millimeters wide, about 81 millimeters tall, and because I'm not going to put my calipers that close to a planar driver, they are about 29 millimeters deep. But this is where it gets a little iffy. Yeah, that's bouncing around 554 grams. That's pretty heavy. Is that more or less than a tungsten? Let's find out. Yeah, it does weigh more than a tungsten. I do like how thick the pads are, but I do not like how heavy this headphone is. I mean, the pads are helping, but there's only so much you can do when there's that much weight. It is more comfortable than most Odysseys that weigh this much. I mean, I think anything beats the LCD5 and MM500's headband design, but brother, that's a lot of headphone. Okay, let's talk about sound quality. This is the frequency response of the headphone. It's what happens when I take this headphone and I put it on multiple different test fixtures, then crunch all that data down, and I'm able to build a map of how this headphone might respond on my head or on yours. Then this gray area is the preference of the average person. It's a pretty wide bound. Most people, whether you prefer more bass or less bass, will very highly likely fall somewhere within this range. As you can see, this does fall on the more bass light end of things, but it's not bad. I mean, the bass trend is still up, and it's more than we get out of most open back dynamics, which are going to go like that. Overall, the bass is acceptable. The low mid range is a little bit on the warmer side, and we have this dip right here, around 700-ish hertz. You can hear it sometimes, but it's not the end of the world. From there, we level back up to around 1 kilohertz on the top of the average listener preference bounds, and around the ear gain, which is this sort of region, this is the most sensitive part of human hearing. And as you can see, we start to really dip in right here. In around the 2 kilohertz area, we dip just below the average listener preference. A lot of planars tend to do this, especially Hyphaman, but usually they pick it back up right in here, and instead we continue to stay on the bottom end of the bounds. With some heads, we'll even go under the bounds. Then around 7-8 kilohertz, we jump back up, still within the bounds here, but you can definitely tell the contrast between 3 to 4 kilohertz and 7 to 8 kilohertz. And we stay relatively on the upper end of the bounds and then start to jump a little bit out of them in the upper treble, the area regions above 10 kilohertz. This isn't super noticeable. I'd say if there's anything that does show up more than anything else in this headphone, it's the recess around 3 or 4K right here, with 8 kilohertz and up being pretty level with 1K and down. That's not too bad, but the contrast with this dip is definitely noticeable. I would say this is kind of like the sound signature of if you tried to take what the Airpods Max was doing, but did it in a way that wasn't complete garbage. The Airpods Max is just like, let's cut it way down here and then rock it into the sky. Versus this, I mean, it's still definitely a bit of a contrasty dip in the ear gain, but it's not as insane as something like the Airpods Max. The result of this is the headphone sounding just a little bit nasal, but mostly kind of friendly to people who are going to be more sensitive to ear gain, a bit more stagey, and more than anything, it sounds mid-forward. This sound signature does lend itself well to things like metal or acoustic music sometimes. I found it okay with electronic, but I definitely ended up noticing this jump right here, and with some vocals, especially female vocals, this dip made me really wish I was having a bit more around 3 kilohertz. Like if we were just right here, that would be pretty spectacular. Like just that change from here to here, I think would make me love this headphone. And as it is, it's not a bad headphone. You can definitely tell it's made by a small operation. And there is an attention to detail on some of the things that I do like. And honestly, it's also better than what most big headphone companies are doing. And look how many years it took Focal to release something that didn't suck. Hyphen still releases a lot of headphones that suck. There's definitely, for me personally, a lot more budget headphones that I enjoy more than most of the headphones in this price class. But with that in mind, this does fit in pretty well with its price class. I mean, assuming you don't have the same thing that my Hinge did here, and assuming you don't mind the weight of things like LCDs or ZMFs or any of those super heavy headphones, then you honestly might like this one a fair bit. I know there's a couple people in my Patreon chat who have this and love it. Is it for me? Probably not. Honestly, I'd rather just stick to something a bit cheaper and EQ it to be the way that I'd like it to be. But honestly, it's also nice to just see another guy out there competing with some of the bigger headphone brands. They need the competition. And that is where I'm going to wrap this video up. Remember, good sound is getting cheap, cheap sound is getting good, price does not correlate with sound quality, and vote with your wallet.